Hi, I'm Tom at Just One Pack, and this is AC On, the short Alpha Clash podcast, where I'll talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. Now, the spoilers have been keep coming. We're sort of in the green week, but chief among the spoiling was the spoils from Tisjitok, I believe, who spoiled the upcoming Clash kit for Genesis Return. So, I don't want to comment on the Clash kit itself here. I want to do that in a separate either podcast or video or something like that. But I do want to comment on some of the cards spoiled, more in an overall strategy opinion piece than in going through every single card. At least that was that's my intention. Let's see how much once I start getting waffling off here. Anywho, let's dig into it. So, as I mentioned, this has been the green week. A lot of green cards came out, but with the Clash kit, we had both War and Pestilence card, or at least intended for them, coming out. So, one thing that... Let me start back at Unrivaled. At Unrivaled, a new group of cards, a new class of cards were introduced called Contender Weapons. It's not per se a new class because it was still just accessories, but they were a new way to build strategies, sort of bringing the contender into play with some effects. They've always been in play, I know, from effects that they have, but in this way, they sort of for a lot of the weapons introduced there, they had to play a much more active role instead of just having these sort of passive abilities, because they weren't playing that big a role in most games. You weren't attacking with them, you sort of just had them sitting there for their static abilities, or engaging abilities, drawing cards, stuff like that. So the introduction of Contender Weapons means, at least to me, that they need to be more, or at least it's possible for them to be more active. Now, we got for some of them, and we sort of from that can expect there will be a few more Contender Weapons coming in Genesis Return, and there is. We've been spoiled quite a few now. Back in Unrivaled, there in the Clash kit there was also an introduction of a War sniper javelin, a War contender weapon, where I didn't think much of it at the point of it, having a promo card that sort of put one of the missing pieces in seems fine. It wasn't overpowered, anything like that. So, but now it makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Because the Clash kit for Genesis Return, for one, contains a new version of War that actually cares about Contender's weapons, and that is a new angle on Contender Weapons, that the Contender himself or itself cares about Contender Weapons. War is not the first, but he might as well have been. Kagan is the first spoiled that did it, but they are both in Genesis Return, the fourth set. They're both in there. Kagan cares about Contender Weapons, and War cares about Contender Weapons. We just sort of have an early warning about War with the sniper javelin. And this whole setup with Contender Weapons, that is the interesting bit. From playing sort of, at least for what I could see, a side quest to the main storylines, you could sort of pump your your contender a little bit with them, but there was nothing inherently broken in it. Magnay sort of leaned a little bit into it with his contender weapons, and him being a 2-0 contender, sort of leaning into his more aggressive side, which is fine, both thematically and gameplay wise. Sort of leaned more into that, and with Gamma Veil and Gamma Fire, he sort of got a little bit more on hand there. Now we got Kagan, and we've got War that directly reference contender weapons. So War, the new War, which I just right now cannot remember the name of, the new War contender from the Clash kits has an effect that says whenever you unattach a javelin from him, you get to draw a card. And Kagan mentions contender weapons in the fact that he can have 4 of them. That might be a precursor, notch. Because with War caring about javelins, and we had a javelin in the starter kits, the Clash kits from Unrivaled, well, of course there will be more javelins in the Clash kit for Genesis Return. And lo and behold, we did get 2 more javelins in there. A slightly overpowered version of the sniper javelin called, I need to remember this, called Gravity Javelin, where you attach that, and you can unattach that, leaning into the War ability, granting your card there. But more importantly, it has a trigger attack. When you unattach, then you can unattach it, and you can sort of pick 2 of your opponent cards that cannot block you this turn, but must block the next attack you do. Now, if you are clever about this, and you have that, you can unattach that, and then for the next turn you attach the other one called Fire Javelin, which before your clash, that gives your contender +1/+1. That's not the big deal, but it has your minions, your war minions, will get a trigger defeat, where they will deal 1 damage to a clash card of your choice. So, and since trigger defeat is within the clash, I guess the clash phase, I guess that would put you in a position where if you only had 1 life left at damage, you would die to it. So that's sort of the idea, at least the straight up idea. So you can utilize your weapons in a bigger strategy, trying to time things in that way. A heavy lift on a Clash kit, that's a different story. On the Kagan side, we've been shown a single Kagan weapon called Fire Mace. At least I've only seen one Kagan weapon. It's called Fire Mace. Single cost, attached price is 2, and it has a trigger attack. It gets +1/+0 until the end of turn for Kagan, which is all good and well. And it gets a triggered victory. Well, it doesn't, but your contender does. A trigger victory where if there's a victory, that it will grant all your Kagan Clash cards +1/+0. That is, at least to me, usually, let me put it this way, usually, for what I've seen, if you were ever to attack with your contender, you might, if you were playing a 30 health contender versus a 25 life contender, then it was worth trading blows in that way. you sort of just hit them for one and you got one too. Yeah, but you had 5 points to spare, so it was worth it for you. So it would always be a contender to contender match. Now what this says, if I remember the trigger victory correctly, then you have to defeat a clash card to trigger victory. So having a contender weapon sort of urging you to use your contender to attack clash cards, that is new to me. I don't think we've seen anything lean into that way of playing with your contender. It's really interesting. A whole new ball game, at least a new world of possibilities have opened or allures us now. Now, I said I had only seen one Kagan contender weapon, and that is true, but here's a prediction: there will be more. The primary thing, I mentioned that when I went through the two contenders, the Kagan contender can have attached up to 4 contender weapons, which sort of indicates that there should be more weapons that he could actually use. But also, there is a load of cards for him that will support that strategy of leaning into the weapons for the Kagan contender. I'm just going to mention the 3 we've seen so far. One is a Kagan Voracious Scourge, a 2-cost 2/2 that lets you when he attacks. He reduces the attachment cost of contender weapons by a single green. You have Kagan Smashing Through. It's a 4-cost 4/4, and if you control 2 or more contender weapons, this has Breakthrough. So you need to. You can of course. Can you play magnet card but not attach them? I don't know. I can't remember the line, the specific line on contender weapons. This can only be attached to a war contender or something like that. I think that's the tagline at the bottom. But unless they mean for you to play something like a Gamma Veil and not attach it just so you can control it, that sentence would not make sense. And the next one's even worse, because if you have 2 or more attached contender weapons, then your Kagan clash cards gain, all your Kagan clash cards gain Breakthrough. So playing around with contender weapons is definitely going to be a thing, and it's even supported. The importance of it is even supported in the new Clash Ground somewhere in Manila, where you sort of play this Clash Ground with no effects other than if you lose one of your contender weapons to the Oblivion, you can sort of discard that, and that Clash Ground will take its place, putting your contender weapon back on top of your deck. So really leaning into the setup with contender weapons for Kagan and for War, which is a new and interesting way. So I'm really looking forward to start diving more into contender weapons, and I think I'm getting more and more interested in building a Kagan deck, but or maybe an upgrade to my War deck. Anyway, that's all I want to say. I've waffled on for about 15 minutes now, and I'm almost at work. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.